Hey everybody, welcome back to Foldspace Live. I'm James Peak, your host and teacher, and today we are folding Torii gates designed by Jun Maekawa, who coincidentally is going to be the special guest at the upcoming Peacock Convention in Sacramento, California at the end of October. Which is hosted by Origami USA. You can go to their website and check out details for that event. I'm hoping to go. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it yet, but I'm going to try really hard because I love the Peacock conventions for one thing. But Jun Maekawa is a very important origami contributor and designer and creator. And I love his work. And he was gracious enough to grant me permission to teach this Torii gate at the last Peacock that happened in San Francisco 2 years ago. And I taught this class and had been meaning to get around to making a video for it or hosting a live stream for it for some time. And I'm finally getting around to it. But I feel like it's a good time to do it because, again, he will be one of the special guests at the upcoming Peacock convention. Now, before I forget, because I always seem to forget this when I stream, if you're new here and you enjoy in-depth classes and tutorials in origami and would like to learn more, please like and subscribe to this video, or like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share widely. It'd be most appreciated. Okay, now that that's out of the way, hello. I see some activity here in the chat. Hey, Juliet, Talo, Deb, all good origami buddies of mine. And first off, I'm going to show you that this model that we're going to fold today appears in Jun Maekawa's book, The Art and Science of Geometric Origami, which I highly recommend. Now, I have to say, I've been very impressed with a lot of the books that Tuttle has been publishing over the years, primarily because they've been working with some very notable designers and creators. I feel like Michael LaFosse and Richard Alexander were kind of the first origami designers to work with Tuttle, and pretty much all of their books are published by them. But since then, they've put out lots of books, including creators like Akira Yoshizawa, Tomoko Fuse, Naomiki Sato, who's known for his intricate detailed roses, and of course Jun Maekawa. And one thing I really like about this book is that it's a little bit more than just it's not just a book of diagrams. And if you own any of Jun Maekawa's other titles, you'll know that he loves to elaborate or provide context to his designs and the different entries in his book, and this title is no exception. And in fact, so the Torii gate that we're going to fold comes from a section in the book that is called Folding from Patterns. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to fold this Torii gate from a crease pattern, essentially. There we go. But this whole section, has patterns, but then it has all of this detailed text and extrapolation, and I think it's really cool. Something else I'll point out is that this book is not purely origami. There's definitely some models that aren't folded from a square, that are folded from interesting patterns, but there's just a lot of content here. And to top it off, this book is only like $20. It's less than $20 cover price. So yeah. So moving on, here's our entry for our Torii gate, and I just want to read a little bit of the sort of background about Torii gates themselves. So Torii gates are traditionally found at the entrances of Shinto shrines in Japan. And Torii can be broadly divided into two types: the Shinmei Torii, which is what we're going to fold today, and the Myojin Torii. The Myojin Torii are the most common type. The uppermost part of the lintel is called the kasaji, and it sits on the shimaji, Both of these curve up at the ends. Lower down is a straight horizontal lintel called the nuki, which extend beyond the post. So you can see here in this picture, so here's the Shinmei version, and then here is the Myojin, and you see the Myojin has the lower part, that bar extends out. Okay, so let's see, let's put this away. All right, so as I said, we're going to fold this model from a crease pattern, and this Torii is from a 6-inch or 15-centimeter square of paper, and this is from a 7-inch or roughly 7-inch, 17.6 centimeter sheet, which is what I have here. So if you want to see the size comparison for your starting paper and your finished product, it does kind of shrink down, and that happens a lot in box pleating. And of course, box pleating is the technique we're going to use to create this Torii gate. And box pleating is a technique that is widely used by designers that involves pleating and creating extra flaps from the edges of the paper. And it can get pretty intricate and pretty detailed. And so this is kind of a nice introduction to box pleating if you've never done it before. Most box pleat designs are folded from a square grid, which we will be creating. Now it's funny, we made square grids when we folded our hedgehogs a few weeks ago, or we approximated or almost folded full square grids when creating the hedgehog. But okay, so let's see what I'm going to do here. I'm going to send this over here. And in fact, actually, we're not going to be able to see that here in just a moment. And all right, so I've got some visuals here for us. All right, so as I mentioned, we're going to fold from a grid. In this case, we're going to create an 8x8 grid. And it's important that when we create our grid that we are creating an accordion fold grid, which essentially is an alternating mountain valley pattern. Okay, so what I suggest you do here is that let's start with the colored side facing up. And by the way, this is Kami, and and this is 24-centimeter paper, which is about 9.5 inches. I typically don't fold these out of this size paper, but for the lesson, I'd like to use this size. And so to start out, we're going to make book folds with the color side facing up so that those book folds are valley creases relative to the colored side of the paper. And once we have one book crease, we'll open up and we'll fold our second book crease. Okay. And so we've got our half creases, and so now we will fold our quarter creases by making what are commonly referred to as cupboard folds. So we'll take each edge still on the colored side of the paper and fold each edge to the book creases that we just made. So I just did one set of cupboard creases, and now I'll do the other set. So it's like I open my cupboard doors, take the bottom of the open cupboard, and do the same for the opposite side. So these are all valley creases. And then we're going to go in and put mountain creases in between all of the parallel valley creases. Now I'm going to show you a little method that I came up with or just started using just this last week when I was practicing for this class. So often times, and if you folded with me before, when we folded an 8x8 grid, or we're folding eighths. So first of all, let's flip the paper over. And if you've taken my classes, you might remember that I like to always fold to I like to fold the inner eighths first. So what I would do is take this edge and fold it to the farthest available landmark of this mountain crease here, okay? Now, if you took the hedgehog class, or if you watched the video, you might remember that I use this trick where I, instead of folding to a crease line in the middle of the paper, sometimes what I like to do, especially if the lighting isn't great in the room where I'm folding, but I'll engage one of those cupboard creases, okay, the one at the very top, so that now I can fold this edge to a creased edge. Now, you don't have to do this in this, this may become a little confusing if you start doing this, but again, I'm taking the farthest cupboard crease and I'm just re-engaging it so that now I can fold to the creased edge. Now, not only am I going to fold this edge up to the creased edge, there we go. Okay. If you take the paper, without unfolding it, take it and let's flip it like a pancake, front to back. We can do the same with this edge. Because this fold is already engaged, and then now we can fold this outer eighth. Okay. Now you don't have to use this technique if you don't like, but like I said, I just kind of started doing it this past week, and I've been doing it a lot as I've practiced. So, all right, so we're gonna unfold that crease, turn it over again, back to this side, and we'll unfold this crease, okay? And then let's unfold the cupboard crease at the top. And to keep things simple, I'm going to rotate 180 degrees so that those creases that I made are still parallel. But now I can do the same thing with this cupboard flap. I can re-engage that cupboard flap. And now I can make the crease that goes in between here. And it's basically rinse and repeat for the other two sides. All right. Oh, yeah. I didn't unfold the last one. I'll keep that folded just for consistency's sake. Okay, so I flip it over. Now I'm going to take that edge to the creased edge. And then we'll unfold everything. And there. And so now you see we've got our accordion fold for that set of creases. So now we'll do everything that's perpendicular to that. So once again, I'll take that top cupboard crease, re-engage that mountain fold edge, set it down flat, take the raw edge at the bottom and match it up to the creased edge. Oh, I tend to always unfold it automatically. I'm going to just keep it folded just to stay consistent. Okay, I flipped it over. Now I'll take this edge to that same crease. And if you're not sure why I'm doing this, I forgot to mention, it's because it's a little bit easier to see a creased edge as a landmark versus a crease in the middle of the paper. But it still works just fine if you just want to keep the paper open and just fold to that farthest crease, okay? And so here we are. So here we are again, re-engage. Did it again. Flip it over, bring this edge to the creased edge. Oop. There we go. And it should go without saying, you want to try to align your edges as best as possible. The cleaner your grid, the cleaner your model will turn out, and the easier everything will kind of work. Okay, but now we've got our 8x8 grid. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to flip it back over here to the colored side of the paper. And now we're going to move on to installing a set of 45-degree angle creases relative to this grid. And that's a very common thing. I mean, typically when you see box pleating, I'd probably say more often than not, you have square grids, but then you have these 45-degree creases that go through. So now I'm going to show you, this is the basic pattern of our creases. And one thing I love about this model is that the crease pattern is very simple. Okay, so we have to install these creases, but of course, these creases aren't lines that go from one edge of the paper to the other. They only exist within the interior of the paper. And so I'm going to show you a trick that I've been using to install these creases, and it's like a nice way to remember it. So if you look at the pattern, you look at the bottom section, you see that you've got a diagonal crease that goes across three rows or three squares. It's the diagonal of 3 squares. Okay, and then it goes up 2, up 1, and then up 2 again, ending at this corner. So the first thing I always do, I mean, if you notice, we've got these creases that basically follow the diagonals of the entire square. So I think it's easiest to start with those. And what I realized is that what you can do is just take, we're going to put the diagonal creases in on both ends. We're not just going to do one end and then wait and come back to the other. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend like I'm going to fold the whole sheet in half. I'm just going to align these corners. And then at the bottom, on the corners, on the outside corners, I'm going to crease through 3 squares on one side and 2 on the other. And it doesn't matter which side you do 3 or 2 on, okay? And so I'm going to just arbitrarily do 3 on this side. So you count 1, 2, 3 squares over, and you only fold through those 3 diagonals, stopping at this vertex. So we do 3 on one side, but now we need to do 2 on the other. So I'm just going to keep the paper in position and just go ahead and knock out these other 2 while I've got the paper ready. And so this time I went through 2 square diagonals. And it might be kind of hard to see here, but there's 1, 2 squares, okay? All right, so that's the first set of the diagonals. Now I'm going to open it up, turn it, and this is arbitrary, whether you turn it right or left. I'm going to bring that bottom corner back up again. And once again, it's arbitrary as to whether you do the 3 squares on the left or the right. As long as you do 3 on one side and 2 on the other. It's kind of neat. So I'm just going to do my 3 on the left here, once again, just to keep it consistent. And then 2 on the other side. And what's cool is that I could have done 3 on the left and 2 on the other side, and it's still going to work out just fine. So we'll open up the paper, and now we do want to reposition it so that it matches the pattern here on the screen. And so I've got the 3, 3 and 3, 2 and 2. Okay. So now we're going to do these other 45-degree angle creases that exist in the interior of the paper. They don't touch an edge of the paper. So at first glance, it might seem kind of tricky. And sometimes, when people are box pleating and they're pre-creasing, they might pick up the paper and kind of pinch in the creases, and that's perfectly acceptable. But here is a nice, easy way to keep the paper on the table, and we can use the alignment of the grid for these next 2. Okay, so now I'm going to point out 2 intersections. And these are where our cupboard creases intersect one another. Okay, they're at the ends of these 2 crease segments that we made. So what we're going to do, we can bring the bottom corner to one side. And when we're doing this, it's important that we not just look at the corner, but we're going to look at the crease lines here and here to help us stay aligned with our grid. And now this next crease segment, this next one jutting up here, it goes up 2. So I'm going to follow that crease line down the middle, and on the right side of that center crease line, I'm going to go up 2 squares. 1, 2, and then I stop. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge of the paper. Okay, so that gives us that side. Let's do the other side. I'm going to take this bottom corner to the opposite quarter intersection and align this as best I can and follow that crease line down, but only on the sort of upper part of this to this side of that crease that we follow down here. We're going to go 2 squares. 1, 2. And then unfold. And now we are simply left with these little 1 square segments, which again, some people might want to just sort of pinch those in. That's perfectly acceptable. But if you want to continue on using the grid for alignment, we have another really easy landmark, the very center of the square. And so what we can do is we can take one top corner to the center of the square, which is like doing a blintz, or 1/4 of a blintz fold. And then now we're going to crease on the bottom to the bottom of this diagonal crease. Okay, so if you follow this up, maybe kind of spread the paper out, we're going to go down 1 square, just 1. And you will see that that connects the end point of this crease and the end point of this crease. So now we'll do the other side. Bring that corner down. And we're going to the bottom of from this crease, 1 square there. All right, and all of our pre-creasing is now done. However, I will we're gonna just keep going from here. All right, there's a step, so there's a lock in this model, and we could put the creases in for the lock now, but I generally I wait till later to put them in, but we could put them in now, but you'll see later like what I mean, so we'll just keep going. Okay, so maybe you can see the creases a little bit better on the white side of the paper. So now what we're going to need to do is go in and reverse some of the crease segments as we collapse the paper. I mean, we're ready to collapse right now, right? Let's go in. Let's just go back here to the white side, because now I'm going to show you kind of a simplified version of how we're going to collapse the paper. And this is starting to get into kind of one of the fundamental elements of box pleating. And what we're going to create is this formation that's often referred to as an Elias stretch, which is named after Neil Elias, who I think helped popularize this method back in the 80s. And so this is, again, a very common just sort of box pleating method that we're going to use. And by the way, I was doing some research for this, and I found a really great article on, here it is. There's a blog called Abrashi Origami School, and I put the link in the description, so you can just click the link later if you'd like. You don't have to write this down. But anyway, AbrashiOrigami.com has a really great article on Elias stretches, and it actually kind of, you can go through an exercise where you can practice a bunch of different Elias stretch formations. Okay, so yeah, just leaving that there for you down in the comments. Now, something else I want to point out here is that, now first of all, the crease lines in this crease pattern, the blue lines represent valley folds and the red lines represent mountain folds. But as we're collapsing, what I'm going to recommend you do, so notice at the very bottom 2 corners of my crease pattern here, notice that those are red, and course, that means mountain fold. When we're collapsing this Torii gate initially, I'm going to recommend that you pretend that those lines are blue, okay, just like the ones up here, which mean valley fold. And we will eventually go back and reverse those, and you'll see how that works here in just a second. So another thing I want to point out is if you notice the horizontal crease lines in the pattern, they alternate from blue to red, blue, red, all the way through to the top part of the paper. And that's why when we installed our grid, I made sure to show you to make the outermost creases valley folds, because that, this entire inner square here is all valley. And then if you kind of follow to the next one, you see that the crease lines here are mountain. Now so here, this is how I recommend we proceed. Now, the first thing I think we should do, because we put, these are all mountain creases, and we've got these valley crease lines up here at the top. And remember, I told you, just pretend that these are blue as well down here, okay? So we do have to reverse the creases in the corners from valleys into mountains. Now, I find it might be easier to flip the paper over and find that existing crease. We're not making a new crease. We're just kind of pinching in that crease, which of course is a mountain fold relative to the colored side of the paper. I'm going to do the same thing on all 4 corners. And as you pinch those corners in, you see that this inner square, already starts to become engaged, which is good. That's exactly what we want to see, okay? All right, so I'm gonna flip the paper back over, and let's reorient ourselves here so that I'm matching what I see here in this crease pattern. So we have these 2 rectangles that have these diagonals that kind of come into a central location. And then we've got one up here too, okay? Now, if you've ever made a hyperbolic paraboloid, this is the exact same idea, where we have concentric squares, or rectangles, I should say, that almost behave like a bunch of open sinks, like alternating open sinks. It goes up, it goes down. The paper goes up, it goes down. And it's continuing to follow that accordion pattern. So if you kind of start to find the next sort of concentric rectangles, okay, we've got 2 of them here. And I'm not kind of doing this all at once, but notice how I'm putting my thumbs in here, kind of as I push in, where we've got these 45-degree angle segments that come in and meet here and here. Okay. So and what's nice too is that these creases are already all mountain folds based on how we pre-crease. So this rectangle at the top is going to kind of want to go naturally on its own. You see I'm just kind of like gathering the pleats. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing down here. Now, we do have to reverse. Notice that these creases in the diagram are blue here and here, but they're mountain. So we do need to reverse these 2 segments and these 2 segments. But fortunately, this one line in the middle is already a valley. But as I kind of bring this together, or this has to go down to become a valley, but you can kind of, this is where the Elias stretch starts to happen, as you start to kind of push, gather the paper together. I'm gonna gather it here, and I'm kind of getting underneath it as well, and you can see that rectangle forming, the red rectangle. And then again, coming back to the idea of like an open sink, that's kind of like what we're doing here with the inside of that rectangle. So we're reversing those diagonals. But as we kind of pinch the paper together, we're just going to kind of find the existing creases. Of course, we're not making any new creases here. You see I kind of pinched that part together. And then what happens here, this is already a valley. This paper here is going to kind of come out like this. So we just keep pinching the whole thing until it collapses. Now, you can see now how we have all of these kind of interesting looking flaps as we just continue to collapse the accordion folds in all directions, okay? So up here at the top, this flap is going to, well, we don't really have to worry too much about the direction. Well, we will in just a second. Just basically, let's just go in and get all of the flaps flat. And I'm going to flip it over now. So now we're looking at the colored side of the paper primarily. And we just want to kind of pinch all of these in. But this is such a clever design because, you know, when you look at it at first glance, especially to those who, you know, might not really know anything about origami and how, you know, paper folding works, is that when you like see something like this that has a hole in the middle, it kind of makes you think twice, like, wait, how did they do that? So here's how we did that. We've got all of these flaps. We've got the center beam here, and then the sides are going to actually be vertical up until this point here. So this little part that was sticking out to the side down here, this actually is what extends out to the sides at the top, okay? So now we've got the basic shape, okay? And now we're just gonna finish it up with, first we're gonna handle the corners at the bottom, and then we're gonna do the lock. Okay, so remember in our diagram, or at least, excuse me, in our crease pattern, those corners at the bottom are mountain folds. So now, and by the way, this pattern, and I think I said this before, but in case I didn't, this is a very simplified version of the crease pattern. There are actually a lot more creases being engaged in the grid, particularly like vertical and horizontal creases. But I thought, just for the sake of collapsing it, I felt like these are the creases that were most important to look at. But we do still need to deal with those creases at the bottom. But of course, these are supposed to be mountain folds. So we simply just use the existing creases to reverse fold. That's why that's a mountain in the crease pattern, because ultimately it does become a mountain. But again, there are other creases along the grid that are being engaged that are not shown in this diagram. I just think it gets really kind of busy and hard to sort of distinguish what's going on when you're looking at the entire crease pattern. Again, we're just going to reverse fold that bottom corner, making that valley a mountain, and then that gives us the bottom edges. So now we've got like nice square bottoms, okay? And now for the lock. Now, remember I said that you can install the creases for the lock before we collapse, and in the future you might want to do that, and they're very simple creases. But before we do that, actually, one thing that I kind of forgot to mention that I always like to do is, once you've got this collapse, you see how these sides are kind of flaring out a little bit. I like to kind of exercise these intersections a little bit, just to kind of get the paper used to, you know, kind of sitting more flat now that it's all collapsed. Like sometimes the creases need to kind of shift around a little bit once we've collapsed it. So I'll take that side and I'll kind of bend it to one direction and then bend it to the other direction. And so there's the sides, and then the same thing at the top, because, you know, we want to have this sort of, I'll use this one, like a more horizontal look. and this guy's sticking up. So I'm going to kind of take that flat edge and I'm going to kind of rotate it to one side, rotate it to the other side. And once you've exercised those creases, now it becomes a bit more perpendicular. Okay, do the same thing here, kind of bend it to one side, bend it to the other side. Okay, and now we'll do the lock. So notice that I've, these flaps are going, they're overlapping right now. So it tells us that they're going to need to sort of interact in some way, and one's going to have to fit inside the other, which is typically how locks work. So what we want to do, and it doesn't matter which side you do which crease on, as long as you do them differently. Okay, so notice I'm kind of opening the paper up a little bit, and I've got, we're making creases in the outer corners. Okay, so here, I'm going to kind of turn this around. I'm dealing with one of those top corners right now. It doesn't matter which one, but I'm going to take the point, I'm going to fold it in. So I'm folding that square in half. So on this side, I went inside the model, okay? And then I'll unfold that. And so now I'll put that back, and now I'm gonna go to the other corner here. And because I went to the inside on the last corner, I'm gonna do the same thing, but this time I'm gonna go to the outside on this corner. So I'm gonna take this corner and fold it to that intersection, folding that square in half diagonally. And this creates a very clever lock, which works pretty well. It's pretty secure once you get it in there. I do find it's a lot harder to put the lock in with smaller paper. But okay, so now we're going to basically take those two corners and make them kind of face one another and become flush with one another. We want them to basically sit together as kind of one plane. And let's see here. So depending on which side I fold it in and which side I fold it out, we're just going to re-engage those creases. So in this case, let's see here. It looks like, yeah. So it looks like I've got a valley fold on this side. So the paper, again, you want to try to line those triangles up as best as you can, and then hold them together and just re-engage those creases and fold inside the model. Now there's still one more step here to make it sit flat, but you can see how we've taken those two corners, those raw corners, and we folded them to the same side. And then, depending on which side you folded them into, so in my case, I folded mine to the left. And it's important that you pay attention to this aspect, because I mean, you could do it to the right side, it's fine, but just make sure you know which side you folded it into, because then what you want to do is we're going to kind of engage those existing creases and let this kind of push to the side with the overlapping flap. Okay, so you push that to the side, and then it sits flat, and then of course you want to give it a good solid pinch to kind of let the creases readjust there, and yeah, that creates like a pretty nice lock. Now, if you were to do that inside reverse, basically that's what it is, an inside reverse. To the other side, what I find is that it doesn't hold together as well. I think it holds together more securely if you kind of push it over to the side where you've kind of overlapped the paper. Okay, and there you have it. And yes, I agree, Talo. It is so elegant. It's such a clever little design. It's very simple, very elegant, and it looks great. When you set it up on the table, though, what I find is that it tends to lean forward because of the way that the bottom edges, the feet, open like this. So you know what I like to do in that case. I like to get out my wrinkle-free glue stick. Now, you don't have to do this to make it stand, but I think it works well to just put a little dot of glue in there on each side so that those bottom edges stay closed. And that really does the trick as far as making it stand more vertically. And if you're using thicker paper, like say if you're using a sheet of Tant, those bottom edges are going to want to splay apart even more so. Okay, so you can see I've got those secure and stands up great. It doesn't lean anymore. Now, real quick, I want to show you, it's just like a little bonus. So I was playing around with box pleating the other day, and I came up with this little figure 8 or infinity symbol. Okay, now this is super simple, and let's see here. So I have an 8x8 grid here, and if you want to make one of these later, again, like you don't even really have to follow my lead, or fold along with me. And if I just, for my diagonals, if I just make the entire crease all the way across, okay, and I'm just going to use that same technique of alternating, like the concentric squares alternate between mountain and valley, okay, and this is how you make the hyperbolic paraboloid, by the way, if you've ever made one of those. So I'm just continuing on, just alternating mountain valley all the way to the middle, and then that center part really behaves the exact same way that an open sink works. Okay, so now I've got these 4 flaps, and what I can do, I can use the same locking mechanism that we use for the top of the Torii gate to attach these 2 sides here. And I don't really need to do it because I just showed you how to do it, but just kind of show you how it works. Now, again, if you don't use glue, the inside kind of opens up a little bit, which, I'd rather not see. So I am going to put some glue in the middle. I know some of you purists are cringing right now, but I'm no purist. Okay, you can just see how we get these 4 flaps. And once again, yeah, I'll just do it. Why not? One goes out, the next one goes in, and I can, in this case, it might have been easier just to pre-crease these before collapsing it, but I have found that it is kind of tricky to get these to get this to work. And yeah, no, it is a lot harder to attach these using that locking method for some reason. But okay, I'm folding under pressure. All right, there we go. This is not very tidy or clean, but I think you get the idea. I mean, it's the same exact thing that I just showed you. I think it just takes a little bit more finessing. Maybe I should just use a bigger piece of paper, and actually there's no point in me really trying to do it right now. So, but anyway, but that's how I came up with this little sort of figure 8 infinity symbol. Nothing fancy. But yeah, there you have it. All right, so I got a really good question here from Mark. Question is, do I ever trim paper with nail scissors if paper creep occurs? And no, absolutely not. Never do that. Yeah, I like to just stick with the square and know that paper creep happens, and will happen to varying degrees depending on how thick the paper is and how many layers you're building up. But I think it's just something you just kind of have to work with. Now, I guess that's one area where I am somewhat of a purist, that I don't want to like cut off the paper. Now, if I have cut the square myself and I see that maybe I didn't cut it perfectly square, like in my first, like when I first folded in half, like yeah, I might trim it just to get it square. But once you start folding, I generally don't like to cut the paper. um, but glue, I'll glue all day, as long as I'm not gluing like out, extra sheets to the thing. But again, there's instances where you do that too. Again, I'm not like a super purist, but yeah. So I've got a few things to share with you now. First of all, if just want to announce the next live stream, I will be teaching Julie Juniper's raccoon design, which I recently posted on my socials and got a lot of great feedback and a lot of people requesting that I teach this. So Julie has given me permission to teach her raccoon. So that'll be coming up 3 weeks from today, Saturday, September 13th. Same time, 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So I've got that coming up. Also, in recent posts, I've asked to, or rather in recent videos, I've asked for I have opened the door for people to throw a few dollars in the tip jar if you felt so inclined. But I realized that after my last video that the Linktree tip jar is no longer a thing. They totally got rid of it. So if you would like to send a few dollars my way, you can do so either by Venmo at Foldspace, or you can use my PayPal, james@foldspacestudio.com. And the last thing I want to show you that I'm very proud of, that I just, let's see here. Hold on a second. Give me a second. There we go. Okay, so something I'm proud of here. I got my Shopify site up online again. So the Foldspace Studio online shop now has a bunch of my original artwork available for sale, which includes handmade pieces as well as some of my photo prints. I do this technique that sometimes I refer to as foldography, where I fold stuff and then I take pictures of it. And I like to use lots of different materials, things other than paper, and then I print them on materials such as metal or canvas. So all of these are actual photo prints, and some of them are kind of open editions, but for the most part, a lot of these I only really have one version of it sitting around. So they're not pieces that I'm really mass producing or anything like that. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that you can find my work at foldspace.shop. And yeah, I think that's about it for today. Here, let me open up my chat window again. Sorry, I'm kind of fumbling here. Yeah, cool. But yeah, so thank you so much for everybody who folded along today, or for those of you who have watched the video recording after the fact. And thank you so much to all of my my regulars, my diehard Foldspace fans. You know who you are. I see you in the chat. And I really appreciate you being here, and I really appreciate all of your support. And yeah, I think I've covered it. I've got a lot going on here in the next few weeks, but I'll look forward to coming back to the live stream for Julie's Raccoon 3 weeks from now. So with that being said, happy folding, and I will see you next time.